Good morning, everyone. There were protests yesterday across the world. There were protests in Berlin, in London, in Ottawa. Protests, all sorts of protests. And here's the Berlin one. Lots of people there. This is Ezra Levent sharing an image. And I don't think Ezra took this image, but there he is. Here's London. I believe this is, I think this is Trafalgar Square. And I've been here. Looking at a mean mugging us. And lots of people. And here's Ottawa. There's a good amount of people here. Lots of umbrellas. I'll show you more. I'll show you more pictures of Ottawa. Here's another one. Welcome to Canada. It's a party.
Aren't they amazing, guys? Come on!
That's Ottawa as well, I believe. Here's Mr. Bernier talking about, I'll just leave the link in the description.
Hello everybody, I'm here in Ottawa. I'm not alone, there's a lot of people over there. We are all fighting for you, for what you believe, for your freedom. It's an important day today, and as you know, us at the People's Party, we will always fight for what we believe. We won't do any compromise with our ideas, and today we want that the government in Ottawa and governments at the provincial level must respect us. That's important.
All right, and that's the meat of it. He says thanks after that, but let's keep going. And so I just wanted to show 3 pictures, right? Here's Ottawa, London, and I'm not sure where that is. Berlin. So there's lots of protests going on. And in response, the UK government... Well, no, and not in response. In preparation, on Friday, August 28th, they started this. They said tougher measures targeting the most serious breaches of social distancing restrictions will come into effect on Friday, 28 August, ahead of the bank holiday weekend. Those facilitating or organizing illegal raves, unlicensed music events, or any other unlawful gathering, of more than 30 people may face £10,000 fines, placing a new deterrent on the breaches that put the public at most at risk. Fines of £100 can continue to be issued to those who participate in illegal gatherings, and those who have already received the fine will see the amount doubled on each offense up to a maximum of £3,200. Interesting, right? So they had this in place. There was a lot of people out in London, a lot of people out in Ottawa. I didn't see masks. I saw images of Mr. Bernier talking with people. He wasn't wearing masks. They weren't wearing masks. I saw other images of people at all of the rallies, no masks. It's very interesting to watch. It's a very clear split. And man, like if you walk by somebody in the grocery store, and I don't wear a mask if I'm out usually, and people, and give me a wide berth, that's fine, right? But there are people who have the face mask and the mask and the gloves, and it's like, okay, man, there's not much more you can do, right? So yesterday, moving on to the other stories. We'll get back to COVID in a minute at the end of the show. But yesterday's other big story was Black Bloc and who else did he say? Well, here's Andy No. He says organized Black Bloc militants have toppled the statue of Canada's first Prime Minister, John Macdonald, in Montreal. They used umbrellas and sheets to shield their criminal comrades. The statue's head broke off as it crashed to the ground. We'll watch the whole thing because, man, this is a sad day for Canada. This is sad that police stood by and did nothing while this happened. Here we go.
Abolish the police! Abolish the police!
Terrible. Awful. And the police stood by. That took time. Like, I wanted to give you guys an idea of how long that took. And 30 seconds is not a lot of time, right? It's not a lot of time, but it took time to set up. It took time to wrap the ropes or whatever. It wasn't wires, but my brain's not coming up with the right term. The ropes to pull them down, whatever. And terribly upsetting that the police didn't do anything. There's other people who think that too. Aaron O'Toole says, he's the leader of the Conservative Party now. He says, Canada wouldn't exist without Sir John A. Macdonald. Canada is a great country and one we should be proud of. We will not build a better future by defacing our past. It's time politicians grew a backbone, stand up for our country. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if the Conservative Party is a patriotic centrist party, then we can work with that. I can work with that. And if Aaron O'Toole wants to turn them into a globalist party or continue them on the globalist party path, then we need to overturn them. But I think the fact that Justin Trudeau has yet to comment on this, and there's other people who comment on that as well, says a lot, right? There are people who have already commented on this. The leader of the Conservative Party is one. And here's Bill Tufts. He says, radical leftist groups destroys McDonald's statue, a defund police group called Coalition pour la Libération, BIPOC affiliated with Antifa and BLM, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. Will any politicians condemn this action? See photos. And Aaron O'Toole did. And hold on a second. And that's notable because that's distance from the last leader. I don't know that Andrew Scheer would have made that comment, right? And so good for Aaron O'Toole. Maxime Bernier is weighing in as well. He says, where are the Montreal police? Are we going to let leftist thugs take control of our cities? And then he says it again in French. And I hope not, but it looks like we are. Casey Madu, and sorry if I've got that name incorrect. He's the MLA for Edmonton, South Wales, and Minister of Justice and Solicitor General. And he says, this madness needs to stop. Governments across our country must take steps to rein in these violent activists. They serve no identifiable good to the cause of justice or equality. And he's got okay, I'll read them all. No nation or leader is perfect. While we still have work to do, our world has made tremendous progress. I want my daughter and son to learn all of our history, good and bad. That's how we move forward. Many communities, including those with significant populations of immigrants, Indigenous peoples, and other visible minorities, face high rates of crime and rely on the police to serve and protect them each and every day. We must strengthen our law enforcement and make reforms where needed, not defund the police or defame those who bear enormous risk to keep our people and communities safe. Our nation's founders and the men and women who put on a uniform to serve and protect us deserve our respect and gratitude. I couldn't agree more. And we need calm heads to prevail, calm heads like that. And we need our leaders to hold these people accountable and make sure that the police are intervening when people are vandalizing and defaming statues or our past. And by our past, I mean physical history and all that. I mean, stand on a street corner and scream all you want, right? We have freedom of expression in Canada. But the second you start wrapping ropes around statues and working in tandem with a large group to shield your identity and topple a statue, that's criminal. Like, that should be stopped, right? It should be stopped. Here's Senator Denise Batters, and she says, this is infuriating. Montreal police spokesman said police were on hand but did not intervene other than to ask the crowd to disperse on a loudspeaker. No arrests were made. Why were no arrests made? It's not like it was difficult to see who was doing it. The people pulling the ropes, the people up on the statue pushing, people holding the blankets or whatever it was they were using to protect their identities from the cameras. Why were no arrests made? Here they are, right? Police, yeah. Please stop doing that. We're going to continue standing here. It's like it was like watching the rail blockades and police ejecting the rebel newspaper people, right? The rebel reporters instead of the people lighting fires on tracks. The rebel reporters are daring to film it and tell people about it. You got to get out of here, right? Use the power of the press for that, or use the power of the police for that. And that is fascism. That is not what you want, right? Like, we want a free press telling people what's happening in a way that, in a story that is accessible and understandable and understandable. And so lay people can understand it, what's going on, right? Like, that's the job of the press. Here's David Miller Haskell, and he says he's a Wilfrid Laurier professor and former PPC candidate. He says, as the mob pulled down the statue of Canada's first prime minister today, police watched. We should seriously consider whether police will act similarly when the mob comes for us. Yeah. We really should. What have the police been told to stand down for? Why is the massive rise in gang and gun crime happening in Toronto being ignored? Why are the drug crimes being ignored? Why are gun criminals getting out on bail in the same day and being arrested for similar gun crimes in the same day? It's happening a lot in Toronto and Guelph. Why are all the publication bans for a lot of crimes that happen Why do they never ever post any identification, or not identification, but the information they've got in the newspaper articles these days? These days it's a man, a Guelph man, a Mississauga man. Right, sure. We don't have any other information. Why do the police officers never know how injured the victims are? They never know. Oh, we don't have that information yet. They never know. 3 days later, you find out, right? And there's a reason for it. The reason is if you found out what the perpetrator did to the victim, you would be more angry at the lack of response from the law enforcement, right? Here's Joe Warmington. He says, it was a gutless anarchist assault on Canada with Montreal police acting like they've already been defunded. Right, what's the point of funding police if they're not going to do their jobs and actually uphold the law? If police are there because we pay taxes and we don't want to take justice into our own hands. We don't want to say, eye for an eye, you killed my brother and so I'll kill your sister or something to that effect. That's how law was back when feuds happened, right? The Hatfields and the... Oh, I can't remember what they were. Hatfield. There was a whole feud. It was like well known, and I don't know that that's part of the reason we have modern law. I think that has more to do with British influence and all of that other stuff. But there was a time period where you did have to take care of the law for yourself, and not necessarily in Canada. I'm not meaning to imply that, but maybe there was. I don't know. I'm not read up on that at this point. But through history, you can look at examples. That's my point. And I don't want to go there again. And that's where the question arises, what are we paying for? Are we paying for you to stand by and watch as vandals, as black bloc militants, as these terrorists tear down Canada's history and then claim, oh, this is in solidarity with Black Lives Matter? Well, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist group, probably affiliated with Antifa. So no, I don't want you standing by in solidarity with BLM or anything like that. Same reason I've turned off the NHL. I never usually watch football. I'll watch hockey playoffs, bandwagon jumper, but only occasionally and only the big games. And this year, no thanks, not interested, right? I just won't. So why are they standing by? Why are they pledging fealty to these terrorist organizations? I'm sick of it, and people not calling it out. It's incredible. Here's Senator Linda Frum, and she says, can anyone point me to any statement that's been made by any member of the Trudeau government on the violent destruction of the Sir John A. statue in Montreal today? Many Canadians are feeling a deep hurt. Where is our government on this? Yeah, where are they? Lost in a paper bag. Here's Roy Green from The Roy Green Show, and he says, hello, Justin Trudeau. No comment on tearing down the statue of Canada's first Prime Minister in your hometown of Montreal today? Are we experiencing this differently? Yes. Right, and here's the Financial Post, and this is from May 31st, 2019, and it says, the anti-fascist left were the real fascists all along. And this is an article from last year that is worth your time now. It says, however, the anti-fascist movement has a sophomoric misunderstanding of fascism and its location on the political spectrum. More disturbing, this lack of understanding extends to its own social media and even the physical tactics that mimic the mob psychology, street rage, and bullying that are the hallmarks of the fascism they denounce. Yeah, they come off kind of dumb, right? Like they come off kind of like, we don't want fascism, while they're engaging in fascism, right? Very, very silly. Here is a protest in Toronto requesting safe streets. Midtown wants its safety back, and it says, shout out to Toronto police for keeping us all safe. Back the blue, safe Toronto now. And here we go. And I've covered this recently. They've bought hotels in Midtown Toronto and put people in them, and there's been a massive increase in crime and like defecation beside children's daycares and needles beside children's daycares, all sorts of stuff that people were upset that they weren't consulted about. Shockingly, right? Like if you live in a very expensive neighborhood in Toronto, can you imagine how much the houses cost there? And you come out and you see like a homeless shelter essentially with homeless behaving in a way that is, not exactly the way you would come to expect $1 million neighborhood to have right in the center of it, right? You don't expect to see that kind of stuff walking out of your $700,000 or $800,000 $1 million house, right? Especially the way the economy is in Toronto these days, right? So it's a little jarring, and so these people are protesting. And the thing is, they keep voting Liberal. So you want John Tory, right? Like, honestly, and I'll say this again, Rob Ford on crack did a better job at being mayor than John Tory. And John Tory also is one of the main owners of Rogers, a $30 million communications company that a lot of people own their like cell phones through. And that's just not appropriate. And he doesn't like advertise this and doesn't talk about this very often, but he's one of the main members of the Rogers Control Trust. The Rogers Control Trust directs the entity of Rogers, right? This is a huge problem, John Tory has used his office of mayor to lobby the government on behalf of Bell, because what happens for Bell happens for Rogers, right? Huge conflict of interest. Nobody really cared. I mean, it was a blip. It was a story. But he won re-election easily, and he silenced Faith Goldie using Bell as an example. Well, we can't run her ads. No, like Bell didn't, so we're not going to, right? Because running Faith Goldie ads would make people think that Bell's a bad company because Faith Goldie's a bad person. So we've approved censorship if the person's bad enough. That's even election censorship. It's incredible what's happened in Canada. It's incredible. People aren't paying attention at all. And they don't understand the loss of the freedoms that we've had. It's already gone. Well gone. Like, you can't even litigate it now. You can't even say, hey, we used to do it, because they'll say, oh yeah, that's been like that for 15 years. Like, sorry about your luck. You were sleeping. Here's Jagmeet Singh. He says, professional athletes are taking action because people with power to make change, like our prime minister, are not. Hold on a second. Prime Minister Blackface Trudeau went out and kneeled with the Black Lives Matter people. Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough, Jagmeet? Isn't that enough? Jagmeet, sorry, excuse me. What more do you want from him? Policies? Policies. The only policy Trudeau's interested in is writing a big check to somebody who doesn't live in Canada, right? A big check to an Asian infrastructure bank, or maybe to Trevor Noah, or anybody who doesn't live in Canada. Or the teachers. He'll give the teachers a lot of money. He just gave them $2 billion, or was it $2 billion? Like hundreds of millions of dollars for each province. $2 billion. He'll step all over the jurisdiction, provincial jurisdiction. That doesn't matter. He'll give billions of dollars to teachers. But he's not going to do policy, I guess, is Jagmeet's point. So Jagmeet could bring the government down if he was really upset about it, but instead he's tweeting. Like, really? This is our effective government. Yeah, sure. Not talking about not talking about billions of dollars to friends and family, not talking about the cronyism, not talking about the rampant mismanagement, not talking about the lack of talent in Justin Trudeau's government, not talking about the lack of ability to put up a competent finance minister, not talking about the difficulty that is coming in Canada with the collapse of a whole bunch of sectors, oil, investment into the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, he wants to talk about taking a knee. Jagmeet Singh, leader of the NDP. Anybody's taking this party seriously? Are you kidding me? Okay, back to this. They're saying taking a knee is not enough. They're saying it's just an American issue. It's a Canadian one too. Systemic racism demands nothing short of systemic change. What happened to the pandemic? Oh, right, it went away, except when it's convenient to keep people inside. So yeah, I think that it's interesting how tone-deaf Jagmeet Singh is, because he is tone-deaf and talking about the wrong items. He's not focusing on the right things. If somebody who is the leader of the NDP cared about Canada, they would be talking about the fiscal problems coming up. They would be talking about the corruption problems, the difficulties with accountability within the Trudeau government. They would be talking about things that mattered like that. And instead, Jagmeet Singh is virtue signaling like a rainbow unicorn as much as possible all over his Twitter. How inappropriate, how disappointing, right? Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he says, the ego of a PM wanting to remake Canada. Is Canada not good enough for him? Are our heroic citizens who raise their families, do their jobs, and give to charity so flawed that they need politicians to remake them? No, the Prime Minister should not change us. We should change Prime Ministers. I agree. Here's Carrie Lynn Finley, and she says, okay, so here's the interview. I think this is the interview. Oh, I took too long. I was diatribing too much. Hold on a second. Okay. Carrie Lynn Finley is an MP for South Surrey White Rock, and she's a shadow minister. She's a shadow minister for environment and climate change. She shared this video of George Soros and our current deputy prime minister and finance minister, Ms. Freeland, interviewing George Soros. And he's talking about the NWO, the financial NWO. That's what happened to this tweet. I almost took a picture of it and I thought, yeah, she probably won't delete it. I was like, man, I kicking myself today. Kicking myself. I should have taken a picture of it. Anyway, so she took this, or she watched this video and said, anybody who watches this should be concerned about how close Miss Freeland is to our deputy finance minister, deputy prime minister and finance minister are to this person. And why would she be concerned about that? Well, there's a thing called Black Friday. So how did George Soros break the Bank of England? And you can read about that here and here. There's 2 links just because, there's lots of different opinions. And here's an amazing Polly video talking about George Soros and Freeland's mother, along with many other Canadians, remade the Ukraine in 1991. Look at it now. Their average monthly income today is around $400. So I haven't watched this video yet, but I think that there's a lot of interesting pieces to that. And there is a valid concern for the closeness between Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, and George Soros. There are many pictures of the 3 of them together, and that's concerning for these reasons, right? The Ukrainian makeover, the breaking of the Bank of England and the British pound sterling, okay? These are the reasons. As I'm not trying to trade in any kind of conspiracy theory. However, here's what Miss Finley put out 18 hours ago after she deleted the tweet. She said, earlier today, I thoughtlessly shared content from what I am now learning is a source that promotes hateful conspiracy theories. I've removed the tweets and apologized to anyone who thinks I would want to endorse hateful rhetoric. Okay, so they can't really talk about the content. They do talk about the content in the CBC article in a minute. But the content speaks for itself. George Soros is talking about a new world order, a new financial world order. And, the history of the images of Soros and Freeland and Trudeau are, well circulated. I mean, you don't have to look hard for them. They pop up on Twitter every now and then before they're removed by the Twitter bots, right? So very interesting. If you want to watch the interview, it's here. And here's the CBC article. Conservative MP Carrie Lynn Freeland, apologized for tweet linking Freeland with billionaire Soros. I think it's Miss Freeland who linked herself with the billionaire George Soros. Conservative MP Carrie Lynn Finley is apologizing for thoughtlessly spreading material about Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland from a source she said she later discovered traffics in hateful conspiracy theories. Attack the source. The conservative environment critic retweeted a video of Freeland interviewing billionaire George Soros when she was a journalist with the Financial Times in 2009 and commented that their closeness should alarm every Canadian. The edited 2-minute clip shows Soros advocating for then U.S. President Barack Obama to bring China into what the financier describes as a new world order, a financial world order. Soros, who is Jewish, is a frequent boogeyman of conspiracy theories from far-right figures in the U.S., his native Hungary, and beyond. Okay, again, that's why I wanted to say it has nothing to do with conspiracy theories or the fact that he's Jewish. I've got Jewish friends. I've seen, all of that stuff. That's no problem. Well, not no problem, but I mean, you have to operate in the world as if in a way where you can operate in the world, right? And the idea that, getting into the conspiracy theories and the Jewish boogeymen, to quote the CBC, is just not where I'm going to go with this podcast at this point in time. So I'm not going to talk about that. That's not why I'm concerned about George Soros. It has nothing to do with him being Jewish. It has everything to do with him being a billionaire financier who's used his money to destroy the wealth of countries, destroy their economy in a specific way. And that's concerning. It's concerning because he's close to the prime minister and he's close to the finance minister, who's also the deputy prime minister. So those are all concerning things. And we should not be ignoring it by focusing on a source that shares hateful material and conspiracy theories, and claiming that because some far-right figures don't like George Soros because he's Jewish, that criticizing their closeness is somehow beyond the pale. Those are 2 different things, right? Like you're allowed to question somebody based on their past behavior. That's prudent. That's intelligent. That's something that you should do, right? Like if you have to interact with somebody, you just have to, right? Like you should. Hey, you did this. You said you were going to get the coffee, and when you showed up, you only had hot chocolate. Make sure you get the coffee this time. Don't be racist. Okay. All right, man. Weird. Okay. Last one for today. And CBC is reporting, this is yesterday, August 29th, today is August 30th. Ontario records another 148 COVID cases, its highest daily case since July. How could that be possible? We've been under mandatory masks since then. How could we be all of a sudden outbreaking everywhere? What's going on? Here's the University of California, San Francisco, links in the description. Their whole rationalization for using of the masks is that when the masks were implemented, the case growth went down. But now we're seeing masks, mandated masks, and we're watching increased case growth. How can that be? Because their whole reason is cases went down. Here it is. The strongest evidence in favor of masks come from studies of real-world scenarios. The most important thing are the epidemiological data, said Rutherford. Because it would be unethical to assign people to not wear a mask during a pandemic, the epidemiological evidence has come from so-called experiments of nature. A recent study published in Health Affairs, for example, compared the COVID-19 growth rate before and after mask mandates in 15 states and DC. It found that mask mandates led to a slowdown in daily COVID-19 growth rates, which became more apparent over time. The first 5 days after a mandate, the daily growth rate slowed by 0.9% compared to the 5 days prior to the mandate. At 3 weeks, the daily growth rate had slowed by 2 percentage points. And again, how can we, if masks work, and if over time the efficacy increases 2 percentage points at 3 weeks, then how could this possibly be true? How could we be seeing an increase in cases? Do masks not work? Shocker. And maybe, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I will correct it. But if somebody could please explain to me if masks work and the 9-point percentage was attributable to masks and the 2% was attributable to masks, then how could we be seeing the increase? I just don't see it. Maybe they've got the science wrong. Maybe the experiments are inconclusive. Maybe they don't know what they're talking about. Maybe I don't. It's true. I'm just a guy sitting in my garage, okay? So I'm just putting out there what I see. And it seems to me that their whole basis for saying that masks work is compromised by the fact that we're seeing increased cases. And, well, I just think that they're lying liars. That's what I think. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Where's my mouse? It's gone. There it is.